how much trash do you generate in a year? Today's guest heretic, Kathryn Kellogg, will teach us a thing or two about the simple steps we can take to minimize the impact of our actions on soil and waterways. We'll compare long and short-term costs of our decisions and take the romance out of minimalist living while keeping the extra cash we save in our pockets. That's coming up today on the Nutrition Heretic Podcast.
Meet Gina. Gina wanted to lose weight, so she spent 2 years fasting, detoxing, and dabbling with vegan diets while practicing a shit ton of yoga to lose 25 pounds. But it took so long that nobody noticed. Then, Gina started Frenching her food by eating fatty cheeses, butter, sausages, and red meat, and lost 15 more pounds in only 2 months. Everybody noticed this time. Frenching your food unlocks the riddle of weight loss that skinny French chicks use to slim down, look young, and live longer despite doing everything wrong. Be like Gina. Start Frenching your food today by visiting nutritionheretic.com/Frenching.
Fat is bad for you.
I just pop a pill and I'm fine.
Meat is murder.
It's time for bad food punishment. It's time for real nourishment. It's time for the Nutrition Heretic.
The following program is provided as information only and may not be construed as medical or health advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the basis of the information provided here. Please consult with a licensed healthcare professional or doctor on any matter relating to your health and well-being. Aloha and welcome back to the Nutrition Heretic Podcast. This is Adrienne Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic, coming to you from the big island of Hawaii. Living on an island, we become more and more aware of what is important to our environment. There's a lot of talk about keeping the oceans clean, keeping the land clean. If you've been following anything in the news and you know about the issues going on Mauna Kea, which is where the telescopes are, there's a lot of pollution issues with the groundwater being polluted and now, trickling down to us. But also, before I moved to Hawaii, but it was when I came on a visit, it was the first time that I had really heard about this island, this continent of floating rubbish out at sea. It's reportedly the size of Australia. And that's incredibly disturbing. I'm sure that many of you have seen pictures or video of sea turtles having straws and other plastics removed from, their nasal cavities and so on, or, other wildlife out at sea being choked by those holders, the 6-pack holders. And it's really disturbing. And on top of it, we here, on the Big Island have had a controversy over styrofoam where some legislators do not want to ban styrofoam of all things. And then they campaign on saying that they wanted to ban styrofoam and that they initiated the act. But seriously, when we know that this is something that doesn't break down. It pollutes the oceans. It pollutes, it just doesn't break down. They're like, what are we going to do with this mountain of styrofoam? We need to start thinking about our future. And especially if we have kids, what's their future going to look like? If you know anyone who's gone to, say, Indonesia, and they expected to be on these beautiful beaches in Bali. These beaches are the one thing that we know now about these beaches in Asia, particularly in Indonesia. A lot of people talk about is just the amount of garbage. Like people in those cultures, they don't necessarily go to the beach the same way perhaps Europeans do or Americans do, but this plastic, the styrofoam, all of these things that don't break down become rubbish on the beaches. And, how sad is that? So today's guest is Kathryn Kellogg. She is the owner of GoingZeroWaste.com. And welcome to the show, Kathryn.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, Kathryn, what was your aha moment about waste, about what plastic does?
Well, to really get to my aha moment, we kind of have to rewind a little bit. When I was in college, I had a breast cancer scare, and it really made me question a lot of the products I was using in my daily life. And I started by trying to balance my hormones, and plastic is a known endocrine disruptor. And endocrine disruptors can be found in a lot of things like beauty products, cleaning products, receipts. Did you know that it's suggested that pregnant women not even touch receipts because it can transfer, the BPA can transfer into your skin in less than 8 seconds?
Yeah, I have heard that actually. Does it depend on the type of receipt? Is it the ones that kind of, the ink vanishes over time?
Yeah. So I have really yet to find non-thermally printed receipts. You can tell because if you take the receipt and you scratch it with your fingernail, it'll leave a dark mark.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was trying to phase all of these things out of my life. And when I moved to California, I saw the plastic and trash all over the streets. And being so close to the ocean, it all clicked for me that waste plastic isn't just a problem for our personal health, it's also a problem for the planet.
Right. And how did you make that shift? Like, what did it take? Because I think a lot of people, they look around, for crying out loud, you look anywhere in our environment, right? From our clothing to the bathroom. Like, where do we begin? It seems so monumental. And I know that you have some challenges on your website, but, it does seem so monumental. Like, where do we start? Where's the one place that we can start and make the most impact?
So for me, when I first started, it was really, really slow. And it was me slowly learning new things. And now I feel like people just are immediately hit with information overload. And they have that reaction, like, where do I even begin? And I recommend that everyone start with the big four, because there are 4 items that are easily swapped out. And it doesn't take a lot of time, because everyone's fears are that it's going to waste money and that it's going to waste time. And I promise it does neither of those things. So the big 4 are: say no to straws. Mm-hmm. Super simple. Bring your own reusable water bottle with you when you leave the house. I recommend an insulated water bottle, because insulated water bottles keep drinks hot and cold. So that brings me to number 3, which is avoid plastic coffee cups. So the coffee cups you get for hot coffee are actually lined with plastic, which many people don't realize. Mm-hmm. They're not recyclable. And so if you have that insulated water bottle on you, you can just pour any leftover water out. You can hand your bottle to the barista, and the barista will make your coffee or put your coffee into that bottle, so you don't have to carry around a whole bunch of stuff.
And some places are giving discounts for that too, aren't they? They're they're incentivizing us to bring our own, sometimes, here in town, we just bring our own mug from the house, they'll knock 50 cents or $1, depending on what it is, off.
Wow, that's way more than I've heard of. But yeah, Starbucks only gives 5 cents, but still 5 cents is 5 cents.
Yeah, it adds up. Well, it's a neighborhood place, and, some of us are kind of trolls. We're there so much, they might as well. Like, we're a part of the decor now.
That's hilarious. And the 4th one is, of course, bring your own bags to the grocery store. Mm.
Yeah, so... the straws, and actually any of this, I'm not saying that this isn't good, but I in Vietnam, because I was in Vietnam last year, and I'm part of all these different groups now that involve Vietnam. And somebody was in there talking about stainless steel straws that her company makes. Mm-hmm. And someone came in to argue, because that's what the internet apparently was designed for. But he came in to argue with her about, more energy needing to be expended to create this metal straw versus, in his case, he was talking about using paper straws. What is, are we paying the price somewhere else when we purchase some of these, non-disposable solutions?
Absolutely. So a paper bag is 3 times more energy intensive than a plastic bag, and a reusable bag is around 500 times more intensive. But the thing is, well, that gets into so this is kind of less about zero waste and more about resource production, which is, oh man, there's so much to talk about right now. I don't even know where to begin. But yes, so we have to look at the big picture. And that's something that's incredibly important. A lot of people hear the word zero waste and they immediately think zero to landfill. And that's not really what it means. While that's true, it is about zero to landfill. It's about resource production. And it's about moving from a linear economy, what we're currently in. A linear economy extracts resources from the ground, creates products, throws them away in a giant hole in the ground. Sounds kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
We are the only creature in nature that produces trash. It is not anywhere else, which is just like mind-blowing. And because nature works on a circular model, a circular economy. And like a tree, when it drops acorns, that's not trash. It composts, it goes back to the earth, it grows more trees, it feeds squirrels, it has so many other uses. And so it's about us, human nature, moving to this circular system so that way we pull resources, create products, and then once they're through, we can fully resume them back into the system to make sure that they're fully used.
Right.
And so when we talk about reusable products like bags or coffee cups or stainless steel straws, it's important that we're looking at the full lifespan of that product. And we also have to change the consumer mindset, because if you go out and buy a brand new canvas tote every time you go shopping, then that kind of defeats the purpose. You should have your canvas tote and you should be reusing it over and over and over and over again until it cannot be used anymore. And then if it's cotton, then you can turn it into rags. You cut it up. And then you can reuse those rags until they're no longer usable. And then at the very end of its life, you can compost it to ideally turn it into soil to be able to grow more cotton to create more bags.
Right, right. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the thing about the bags, because just before you said that, I was thinking about the fact that many of these bags have become almost collector's items. Have you seen this? Like, they're making some of them so attractive that people just kind of go around and they just buy more bags all the time instead of carrying their own.
Right.
And I mean, on the one hand, yes, it's nice that they're making a stylish bag, but then, how many do we need? And it's tricky to get that. Now, because we know of certain things, like you say, we talked about, like you just mentioned the cotton bags, is there anything that we need to worry about? And I guess if maybe this isn't a non-issue, because when manufacturers, or you say a store is making, let's take Whole Foods, they're making these canvas bags for their shoppers, and are they using ink that you don't mind going into your soil? How many of these do we have to worry about? Whatever colorant they're using. Becoming a different source of estrogens or what have you.
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue, especially when it comes to clothing, toxic dyes. Yeah.
yeah, because my daughter, she's notorious for, she wants to dress in all these pretty things and then she rips a hole in it. So right now I've got a skirt, a full length skirt, and a pair of leggings that are sitting on my little day bed, trying to figure out what the heck to do with them, because I don't want to put them in my soil. They're flaming pink. I don't want to put them in my soil. Probably going to cut them up and use them as rags. We have animals and stuff, so probably going to end up being shredded up for bedding or something. But what do we do? Like when do we kind of say enough is enough? Like I can't take that with the holes in it to the thrift shop. They're going to reject it.
Right. So for me, when it comes to buying clothing, I definitely try to find pieces. I look for pieces that are going to last a really long time. I try to look for natural fibers. I personally like color, so I have quite a few very colorful pieces. So I try to opt for non-toxic dyes when I'm purchasing new. It's one of those things where it's just not perfect, so you just try to do the best that you can.
Right. Well, I think that's a good point that you make too, because it's easy to allow ourselves to become a little neurotic about this. But that's not what you're going for. You're just trying to bring a certain level of consciousness about what we consume, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not about being perfect. It's just about trying to make better choices.
Okay. So talking about being perfect, I originally heard about you on NPR. How much waste do you generate in a year?
Well, I ran an experiment to see how little waste I could produce. And for 2 years, I did it for 2 years. And through that time, I was generating 8 ounces a year.
How in the hell you do it?
Well,
I mean, no, don't tell me you eat out, because now we know that the restaurants are just, they're probably one of the worst offenders for throwing out things, right?
And that's one of the problems I had with collecting my trash, was that it doesn't account for anything in the waste upstream. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't account for waste that I don't see.
Right.
And I didn't want it to discourage anyone, because I live in the Bay Area, California, and I have access to awesome package-free food. And it's so easy for me to, take a train to the grocery store. And yeah, that takes like 30, 40 minutes, but I can go there. I can buy pretty much all my groceries package free. And then I just hop on the train and I come back. It's not difficult. And a lot of people don't have access to the same level of package free food I do. And this is what I try to tell people is, guess what? The food in the bulk bins that I'm buying came in a package. Like, I'm just not seeing the package. Yes. And so I don't want people to feel bad because they have to buy their food in a package. And it's not like I'm some superstar or I'm doing anything crazy revolutionary. I just think, like you said, it's about being more conscious. And so I just hope that I can equip people to be more conscious. And I try not to focus on the trash jar so much anymore. Right.
Yeah, actually, it's funny when you talk about that as well, because one of my first podcast guests was Leah Keith, who's the author of The Vegetarian Myth. And she tells this story in her book about trying to raise lettuce that is cruelty-free, or some kind of greens, that's cruelty-free. And so but the problem is she keeps getting these slugs, and the slugs keep coming and eating her vegetables at night. So one night, like dead in the middle of the night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, she goes out, collects all the slugs in a jar, and then drives them out to the forest and dumps them at the base of a tree. And when she wakes up in the morning, all of her vegetables are full of snails and slugs again. So then she goes to the supermarket and, she finds whatever natural market it was and finds this, just raised right head of lettuce. And she walks out and she's really triumphant. And she's like, yes, I finally got my cruelty-free lettuce. And then she's like, who the am I kidding? Because she realizes that, there's somebody, even though she's not seeing it, like you say, somebody took care of the slug problem or whatever by whatever means necessary to bring it to the supermarket. So, and that was, I think, part of her kind of dismantling of, her thought pattern was like, okay, I can't be so obsessive about this. This is like, at some point you have to just live your life.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
So, because I like to I'm not, definitely not zero waste, but, I'm trying to be conscious. One of the issues we have here is we have loads of farmers markets, 4 of them on Saturday alone. And many of the vendors, they prepackage their stuff, a little spinach or mushrooms or what have you by weight. And it's bagged up already. And, I can't, even if I reject the bag, they're not allowed by county health code to reuse that bag. So it still ends up in the landfill. Are there creative ways that we can use this stuff again? Like, I'll sometimes use it, you say, as a waste paper basket, near my bed. Or in the bathroom or in the kitchen or what have you. But, are there some other creative ways that we can repurpose these before they hit the landfill?
That's really interesting. Because at my farmer's market, like the strawberry punnets that you typically buy strawberries in, like they'll reuse those.
Yeah, they got all these wacky laws here in Hawaii that seem to encourage more waste.
I mean, honestly, I'm not really the person you talk to about upcycling. That's not really my area of expertise. I'm not an upcycler. No. I'm not super crafty, but I would talk to them. I would show them examples of other farmers markets that do it without that, and then see if they have an option, because I know where I go, they have the option of the pre-pack, but they also have the loose, so that way you can grab what you want.
Right, yeah.
So I would just talk to them and see if maybe they can change.
Yeah,
that'd be my suggestion.
Yeah, it may be also partially getting involved more in government and and changing those rules to allow them to switch, and maybe it is going to paper bags for some of them.
I am a huge proponent in people who care about the environment or really care about anything about getting involved in local government.
Right. Unfortunately, so much of government is corrupt. And, the good players, we just saw that with our recent elections here in Hawaii. Not one progressive got into office. And there's, because Hawaii is considered a progressive state, many people who want to be involved in government, and I'm not going to say that none of them are on the take. I'm going to put it that way. But a lot of them, they will hide their affiliation and, say that they're progressives and that they're for this. And then as soon as they get into office, they vote for anything other than our environment and small business and, local people. Which is really tragic. But, we could talk off air about other things. I don't want to put another target on my back. I already have one. Gotten a few threats this past season. In any case, let's see. So, one of the things that I thought was really cool on your website is because I've been trying to do this since my kids were born. I remember specifically going to a friend's house, and she had, I think, 5 little girls. And one of them was taking and she was, good woman, like not, very, what's the word I'm looking for in English? It's like a very, just, good natured, not wasteful, very pragmatic, about a lot of things. But her daughter is taking a box of tissues and she's playing, she's putting her doll to sleep and she's making a bed of tissues. And it's just like I'm just watching this. It's like one tissue after another tissue after another tissue coming out. And so, of course, my daughter sees this and now she's got this thing about tissues and, just creating, more waste. So at least when I think of tissues, I think of something that, okay, that could break down. I could stick that in my compost pile, whatever. But still, it's a challenge, isn't it? Kids love to waste water, right? How often, kids can't stand to take a bath, but they love to wash their hands for forever, like when they don't need to wash their hands, at least. They like to play with their paintbrushes in the sink or what have you. What are some of the tips that parents can, use to get their kids on board with going zero waste?
I am not a parent, so I don't feel overly qualified to tell anyone who has children what to do. But I think it's important to bring them into nature and to show them what they're protecting and just tell them and explain it to them and tell them why we do things that we do, like why we don't want to waste and why. And it will probably take a little bit of time to sink in, but I do think it's really important to spend time in nature with your children. Right.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. And it's like, it's good when we're there and they're like, I wouldn't say there's tears rolling down their face, but they get a little sentimental. And then we go out and they're like, Mom, can I buy a water? And I'm like, where's your water bottle? We just talked about this. Like, what's going on? It doesn't always translate, unfortunately, at least not with my kids. But no, it's definitely, good to show them. And I think it's one of those lessons that, if anything, maybe it carries forward to when they see other people, really being wasteful, or when they get older, they begin to appreciate. So, what are some of the, you had one really interesting story that I wanted to touch upon, which was your experiment with tiny home living. and it really makes me think that, just kind of giving you my first impression off the bat, which is that I think a lot of us, we romanticize this idea of like, oh, I'm only going to have 10 pieces of clothes and it's going to be good. I'm going to have all this space, it's like very minimalist lifestyle. Talk to us about the tiny home experiment.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because I thought I was going to love tiny home living. And granted, my tiny home experiment was a little different than most. I knew that I wasn't going to be doing it permanently, and I wanted to hold on to a lot of my belongings that I owned. And so the space wasn't optimized as well as it could be, which is part of the reason it didn't work out. Also, it wasn't like a nice new tiny home with an open floor plan and large windows and an actual kitchen and a living space and a sleeping space. It was built in like the 1920s, and it was this like one studio bungalow that was 325 square feet, and it was laid out so poorly. There were 3 very small windows in the whole place, and living there with my husband and a 50-pound dog just was too much. And we did it in our first year of marriage, which I'm sure. So, yeah, it was a trial and it was an experiment. And it's not that I want a giant house by any stretch of the imagination. We were very comfortable when we were living in our 2-bedroom, 800 square foot bungalow. Right. But my husband was in school and we didn't want to go into debt. So we moved into the tiny home to allow him to finish his degree without, having to take out any loans.
Right.
And so for that reason, it was absolutely amazing. It was really easy to clean, which was nice, but it definitely taught me a lot of lessons about how much you need to live. And sometimes, and it's okay. And it's totally okay to not feel like, oh, I'm not doing it perfectly, or I'm not doing it how people want me to do it. It's like, no, I'm doing what I need, and I need a little bit larger space.
Yes. Yeah, we bought a home last year, and in the process, there was a house that had a tiny home in the back, and it was basically a trailer. Not unlike what was that show with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, where you know what I'm talking about on Netflix. It's I'm totally drawing a blank, but yeah, their husbands decide to go off and get married to one another, and so the one son lives in a tiny home. So it was that kind of a trailer deal, and it was abysmal. This place, it was really quite dreadful. It wasn't nice like on TV. It didn't make it like that. It had. I think the person who slapped it together, yes, it was slapped together. It just had like linoleum peeling up, and it was cramped as all get out. And even as for one person, I'm not even claustrophobic, and I was claustrophobic in there. And not to mention we're in the tropics. So even though this town tends to be very cool, it was sweltering in this place. The one thing I would say is that it probably did get decent light, at least in the one like breakfast nook. But similar to, I guess, what you were saying on your blog is that you don't necessarily get that differentiation of space. So did it feel a little prison-like after a while, where it's like, you're going to the bathroom and brushing your teeth and, like stirring eggs on the stove at the same time? Like, what's going on?
I mean, it was 325 is big enough that we had like a defined bathroom and a defined kitchen, right. But we did not have like a defined living space and sleeping space.
Right.
And like working space. So for me, since I work from home, I basically the bed was my desk, and the bed was also like where we like watched, like with the couch where we like watched TV or like played a game or like talked, and like it was just really, really difficult to basically. Did you see Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that movie?
Right.
You know, like how the parents are just like lying in bed all the time.
Yeah.
That's like what I felt like.
Oh man. But what did it teach you about like did you find that as, I guess, as an extension of your zero waste lifestyle? Did you think that you were going to, save on energy, save on, consumables? Because I think that for some people, and correct me if you don't see it this way, but I think for some people, they see that, the kind of downsizing, living small, not having owning more than 50 items or whatever the threshold is. And they see it as this, hyper efficiency. But again, sort of what we were saying before about, you're paying for it on the other side. They aren't eating at home, so they're going to restaurants all the time. Or, you know what I mean? They're consuming more single-use items now because they're trying to keep stuff out of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely there was the lure of tiny home living because, downsizing, minimizing possessions, consuming less resources. Like, I was excited about all that. But you were totally right. When your bed is your desk and couch and everything and you never leave, you definitely want to get out of the house. I mean, as a downside for us, since we were doing it to save money, we couldn't really afford to go out to eat. But I guess that's one plus is that I would go on like 2-hour walks every day, which was with my dog, which was really nice. But I mean, definitely anytime during the weekend, I was like, can we please just like go out to eat? And we'd like sit at a cafe for a couple hours because it was just so hard to be in the house. Right.
So,
yeah.
Makes you think a lot about how people live in other parts of the world too, where that size, is probably a luxury even for some people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because, 325 for all intents and purposes, like I'm thinking, a 10 by 10 room, make that 3. Yeah, that's, it's not horrible. but
if things got really bad, I mean, like it was definitely, I would want to be there. But once my husband got a job, a full-time job after he graduated, then it definitely was very exciting to move into a larger space and have natural light. And you wake up and we got a couch and we got it secondhand, but we got a couch. And I'm telling you, I cried for like 3 days. Like every time I saw the couch, I would just get really teary because I was like, I'm just so happy to have a couch and like a place to work. And it definitely makes you appreciate what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, I don't know if you know, PBS had done some, like historical, reality shows. And, there was one that was set in the Edwardian era. So, turn of the 19th into 20th century.
Are you talking about the Victorian slum house?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I love that show.
I'm going to have to look for that one. I was, thinking of Manor House. And so it's this, they recreate this British manor and they have the guy who actually was he was the butler on the show, but he was also descended from a butler in real life from that era. And so he was an older guy and he understood like what the rules were like. And, he totally was, like lived that part of the show. But, when they brought in, especially the younger staff members for this manor, they went through scullery maids. Like, I think they went through about 3 or 4 before they settled on one because they kept quitting because it was so hard to live like that. And, the one of them, I want to say she didn't even last a day. And, when they visited her at the end of the show, they said, how did it change you? She's like, well, I don't waste paper as much at work. Like, even just that little brief couple of hours she was there, she realized how much, at her regular desk job as an administrative assistant or whatever, how much paper people were wasting, just going through the copier all the time. And it just made her that much more aware. So I totally get it. When you talk about, that experience, I can imagine after a year of doing that, how that changes your mindset and shifts you, towards gratitude.
Absolutely.
So tell me, I'm going to let you go soon, but tell me a little bit about the money saving aspect of this.
Yes. That's one of the best parts about this. And actually one of the main reasons that I really got into zero waste living was for the financial aspect. So like I said, I had I started making a lot of lifestyle changes in my 20s, and I majored in musical theater. I was a professional actor, and we all know that professional actors do not make a lot of money. I believe I was making around $250 a week. So,
wow.
Yeah, I was not making much money at all. And so thankfully, I mean, I lived in after housing, so at least housing was taken care of. But
good.
I made a lot of these changes out of financial necessity because I promise you will save so much money. Just being a conscious consumer and really examining what you need and will immediately drastically cut so many of your purchases. So you'll be saving a lot. I say that you should wait 30 days before purchasing anything to make sure that you really need it. Mm-hmm. And most of the time after 30 days, you kind of forget about it and you're like, oh, I don't really need it.
Sometimes just overnight. You know, there's like, especially now that we can buy things online so easily. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what? If I'm thinking about this in the morning, then I probably, need it. And I might even wait a little longer than that. But sometimes it's just like that in that moment, there's something else that you're trying to feed. And for some reason, we've used shopping as a surrogate for, getting other, forms of love or whatever it is that we're looking for in life. It's, I think it's very easy to fall into that trap of buying things. And even with food, the GMO lobby, they love to talk about how, organics is too expensive and you can't afford it and, just eat this stuff instead. But, everybody that I know who's gone organic has ended up saving money. Or when I say go organic, I'm not talking about buying organic Cheerios. I'm talking about just, eating, more direct from farmers markets and things like that. And they're always shocked that they actually have money at the end of the month. And I'm like, yeah, because you were buying a bunch of crap, like you were eating unconsciously before. You didn't know that you didn't realize you were spending $20 a day at a vending machine, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like these convenience items that we often purchase because we're not conscious of it.
Yeah, that's a huge place that I've saved money because I would buy, I still bought processed foods and like I love Pop-Tarts and, I would buy a box of Pop-Tarts as a treat for myself. But like a box of Pop-Tarts costs like $5 and it's only like 8 Pop-Tarts. So you can go through that easily in like 5 days. And so that like money doesn't not make any sense. For $5, you can buy I can go to the farmer's market and I can buy an organic pack of berries. I can buy like 2 pounds of or 3 pounds of oats and have breakfast for like, 2 weeks, it's just, you have to completely break down how you view food and start gaining or eating the majority of fresh produce, like what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and even when it comes to meat, because what a lot of people don't realize is that when they get enough of the, like pre-structured protein in their bodies, a lot of the other cravings go away. So you're not, so it's not like you're adding this on top of stuff. It's like, no, this becomes kind of like your mainstay. And then every once in a while, you want it, whether it's a glass of whiskey or, a Pop-Tart, like, yeah, that might happen too. But I think the way that many of us eat today, it's so, just kind of on the go and without much care or thought put into it. We really don't realize how much money we burn through. I had a neighbor here who, just for feeding my family, we would spend the same amount on money, her feeding herself and me feeding a family of 4. Because she would eat out and, like she wouldn't even make her own coffee. Like everything had to be, she would go somewhere and get, 3 or 4, not just regular coffee either. It was always, the extra whatever latte with this and that, syrup and whipped cream and all this other stuff added on top of it. So, yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, that's kind of pricey. And then she'd be like, oh man, Hawaii's so expensive. I'm like, no, it's not. They're like, really? It's not. So I started taking her to the markets with me and she started to realize, oh, this is a lot cheaper than if I go to the supermarket. And I was like, yeah, it really is. And you're putting the money directly into your neighbor's pocket. As opposed to going to a supermarket where, I mean, I could go on on a big tangent on that, just, but sending it off island even, in many cases, these companies most of them are not even Hawaii owned. And so the money's not even going, they might make, $10 an hour for working there. But look, if you can just give them the $10 directly, that's way better.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And other ways I've saved money is I've swapped out all disposable products for reusable products. And if you think about everything you throw away, you're paying for trash. Like that's money. And so tissues, paper towels,
right,
plastic wrap, aluminum foil, all those things that you throw away, that's just throwing away money.
Yeah. I keep a couple of paper towels and tissues around for backup, because a handkerchief doesn't always work for everything. Same thing with paper towels. But what does drive me nuts is every time there's like the littlest spill, my family pulls out a paper towel. I'm like, there is a sponge right here. There's, I've got like other cloths that are good for that, and I'm constantly like recycling it. And one of the things that I'm doing right now is we have a half acre, but it's completely undeveloped. And so I'm building soil. And what I'm doing is I'm collecting people's old cardboard boxes. And, we have some fallen trees. But other than those fallen trees, it's barren. It's rock essentially. I'm just building soil made out of paper boxes and, cardboard boxes and stuff like that. So
people think that paper towels is a really hard habit to kick, but I promise just stop buying them and just tell everyone where the towels are and they'll start using them. And before long, you won't even notice a difference. And you'll be like, why did I have paper towels in the first place? Because now we don't use them. And I don't notice any difference.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, for me, I don't know. Like I said, I use maybe one a month, like those little third size ones. But yeah, it's the rest of the family. And there's usually something that I've rationalized in my head that it makes sense. But now I'm going to accept your challenge, I think.
Try it.
I'm going to try it.
Hide them. Hide all the paper towels and see what your family does.
They're going to lose it. I can see it now. Mommy, where's the paper towels? I need one.
And then you just say the rags are right there in the drawer.
You know what'll happen is they'll start using the toilet paper. I guarantee you.
What?
I guarantee you, one of those schmucks is going to decide that the toilet paper is, because, like spill something on the floor, toilet paper. I don't know. We'll see. Well, not used toilet paper. Come on.
No, I know, but still, like, toilet paper doesn't absorb moisture in the same way a paper towel does.
True.
Well, it does.
True.
It'll just, like, fall apart.
Lesson learned. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking with us. Before we leave, you have any other eco-friendly tips on places where people can make some fairly easy swaps?
Of course. You can head to my website, which is goingzerowaste.com. You can also find me on Instagram, which is going.zero.waste. It's also linked through my website. I post there almost daily, and I do a ton of stories with lots of daily life tips and advice. And I have a book coming out, which you can pre-order on Amazon, which is 101 Ways to Go Zero Waste.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn, for talking with us today. And best of luck to you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, great. Bye-bye. The Nutrition Heretic Podcast is a production of Savor the Journey, LLC. Our audio editor is Nicola Popovich. Our podcast manager is Crystal McLean. And our operations manager is Michelle Med. I'm your host, Adrienne Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. You can find us at the new and improved nutritionheretic.com, where you can download the Nutrition Heretic's free shit list of 7 health foods to avoid like the plague. You can also listen to previous episodes at nutritionheretic.com/podcast. Be sure to like us on social media for updates. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nutritionheretic and on Twitter @NutriHeretic. Contact us with show ideas, questions, or if you want to be a guest. And don't forget to rate our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher.